My husband served in the armed forces during the war, and he often told me how extremely happy he was being there. This shows him, he's sitting in the corner there with friends he was in the army with, and this is in Greece, and he would say, I didn't have a very good education, but when I got in the army I saw the world and I improved it no end. There's also this one which shows him in a colder spot, and he was very happy with this group of men he was in the army with there. They were rather earlier in time than the others and came mostly from locally in Hampshire. He really and truly was a man who, when he said he was proud to serve his country, oh my goodness, he meant it all right. This is he and I when we married. This was in July at St Paul's, Herne Hill. It was a church near where I lived, and personally I thought it was quite an attractive looking little church as I walked up or down the hill past it. And I did feel that the people who went there did their best. They looked after the garden and they saw that their church stood out as somewhere for the whole of the community to use. I was very pleased after our marriage when we went to the hospital and saw my mother, who had been taken into hospital and had to have a serious operation without a great deal of knowledge that this would happen to her. She had, with one of the last things she said before she went under the anaesthetic, don't put your wedding off. I don't want to think I've spoiled things that have been arranged. And she mentioned about my husband being on leave and that it would be awkward for him to find the time again. And so we got married, and as I say, we went to the hospital afterwards. Around my neck I'd had a necklet with a crucifix on it, and I took this off and put it round my mother's neck as she sat in her bed in the hospital. She was not really keen on crucifixes, but in this instance she was very pleased because it was so special. I have looked at this and seen my husband here with his friends in this hot space in Greece, and I think that I have never seen this place or this country, but when I heard about it from my husband, I realised how much it had meant to him to go there. And he told me that he had often wished that his foster parents had more money so that he could go to places that he wanted to visit. But he said, I never told them because it would have hurt their feelings thinking I wasn't satisfied. And he said that every day when he looked back as an adult on his life with his parents, he thought how wonderful they'd been to him, and if he had been their real child, they couldn't have done more for him. I'm glad about that because it's always good to have a happy ending to stories. When our children were born, I expected him to be the sort of father who wanted to play games with them and take them out for walks, but he turned out not to be at all like that. He was, in fact, what you would describe as a man who went to work and believed that you ought to get involved in trade union activity to make sure everything was right. But one of the things he was quite certain about was that he would not run his employers down. He thought that was churlish, and he said, it's not possible the employers could always be wrong. It might be we in the union sometimes who are. And I urged him not to say that to his fellow union members. However, on the whole, they were nice people. And I do feel, looking back on it, that I was very fortunate to marry someone who did not just think of coming home and sitting in the garden or something. He did think that he ought to do something outside the home. And one of the things he was always good about was when I told him about the suffering of some people who had children or adults in their family who were very, very much in need of care and attention for 24 hours of the day. And some of them were so handicapped in mind as well. They didn't know they were such a thing as a human, let alone anything else. And he did help me with that work. And when he was elected to our borough council and was on the housing committee and the social services committee, he made people sit up and take notice. And I remember that the person at the head of the social services committee, he was a man who was really determined to do the best he could for the people of our borough. He said how wonderful it was working with my husband, because he really saw what he, who was the worker and in charge of the department, was trying to achieve. And I thought that was great.